Good evening. Welcome to the West Seneca Central School District Board Meeting. This is our work session, and tonight we'll be specifically hearing about our curriculum cabinet, which is a valuable asset to our community. So first we'll start with the pledge. Mrs. Dalbo, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and we'll hear from our superintendent, Mr. Bystrat.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for tuning in tonight. So just, I guess, a few items of note. First of all, I'd like to thank our presenters for being here tonight. Also, to thank our folks. We have some new appointments, some folks that are up tonight. I'd like to thank them for coming as well. Just a couple of items I guess I just wanted to be able to bring up to everybody. There's been a great deal of conversation around the Centers for Disease Control's new guidance that they updated a couple of weeks ago, basically. And the biggest noteworthy point there is they're saying that 3 feet of social distance between students and school is acceptable. And I know I did address this a little bit, the possibility of this happening at a previous board meeting and a couple of videos since then, but just to kind of let people know kind of where that stands right now. As of this point, New York State has not made any changes to their guidance. There was some speculation they may do that last week, shortly after the new guidance had come out from the CDC. It hasn't happened yet. So we have been preparing. One of the, as a point of note, and I did mention this in my communication, my video last week, is that one of the requirements they have is they're saying if you're an area of high risk, or not high risk, but high infection, which every zip code in Erie County, the last I checked, is an area of high infection, your secondary buildings, so your middle schools, your high schools, would still need to maintain 6 feet of distance if they couldn't cohort, which means having students traveling together in pods throughout the course of the day. That's not something we or the vast majority of school districts are prepared to be able to do at the secondary level. They're just not set up that way. Elementary is a different story. They're saying at the elementary level, now this is if New York State adopts CDC's guidance wholesale and just says, yep, we'll do exactly what the CDC says. They are saying that 3 feet would still be appropriate at that point, so that's something that we've been kind of gearing up for. And you're measuring, you're trying to do a lot of hypothetical work, but at the end of the day, that is something we would like to be able to do, is greatly increase the amount of participation of our students at the elementary level, so in person. So it will take, I don't know if anybody saw the Buffalo News article over the weekend, but where other districts were kind of sounding off saying it's going to take a few weeks or a couple of weeks at least to get things in place. A lot of equipment has to be moved around, tables, desks, things like that. So the other side of it is that we've been putting tents up. If you've been driving around the district, we've been putting, people are referring to them as circus tents, but what that's doing is creating some outdoor or additional space for us at the very least, but also one of the issues is going to be lunches. The CDC is still saying you need to be 6 feet apart in lunches, so that's somewhat problematic. But our building principals are getting very creative at looking for different opportunities we might have to be able to create new spaces and, having kids utilize little like mats and things like that to sit on and eat lunches. So that's something we're going to continue to work at. So a couple of other items I just wanted to be able to bring up too, and I know one of them went out yesterday from Mrs. Persico, but letters in terms of assessment. So the New York State Education Department is still required as of this point to administer the New York State assessments in ELA, math, and science, the 3-8 assessments. So they've scaled them back. We did send out a letter yesterday, which I know was forwarded onto the board, but detailing some of the criteria associated with that. So there's windows of time. It's only 1 day of testing. They're scaling back the testing a little bit as well. So we did just send out a letter to our families informing them of this. When you talk about our high schools, I know a couple of districts have already canceled some of their finals altogether. I think we found a good middle ground. We're still administering an end-of-the-year assessment, which we will be communicating to our families. But that assessment's going to be, provide a lot of opportunities for students to be able to kind of, work on it, look for feedback from their teachers, and be able to, resubmit. Really, the important part is that the students are acquiring the knowledge. So another part is based on some of the effort that the students are demonstrating, and that's a communication that we'll be officially sending out to our families just after the break, but for our high schoolers. So they're still going to be on the hook. They're still going to be responsible and accountable right through the end of the school year. Our teachers are going to keep teaching, so it's not a matter of saying no finals and the concern that, students are going to kind of check out. We really want to make sure our students stay engaged, and our curricular leaders have worked very hard with our building principals and with Mrs. Persico and the cabinet to make sure that we are kind of honing down some of the essential learnings. So basically looking at what standards, what learnings are most significant, most critical for our students to be learning from now until the end of the school year. So. And I also have some very good news here. Dr. Merkel, I think when he presented back a couple of meetings ago, he mentioned that he was going to be working on a Perkins grant, and we have successfully secured that. It's a $45,000 grant that we can use for like career one of the areas that we've been exploring is creating work, like sort of school-based work experience for students to be able to, get credit. There's something called a CDOS, basically, that students can get, and it's additional credit toward graduation. It's good for them. It's good for the district. It's work-based experience, or school-based work experience. So this money could actually be used toward helping to, facilitate if you had to have somebody in place to help oversee a program like that or something along those lines. This funding actually could be useful. I actually just signed the document today, so we've been officially approved for it. So many thanks to Dr. Merkel for all of his work and all the folks in the academies to make that happen. So, okay, that's all I have for this evening.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. A couple of dates that the board should be aware of. Tomorrow is the first DPC organizational meeting that is going to be held in the boardroom. Is that
Yes,
correct? Okay.
5:30, I believe.
5:30, okay. And so that, get that organization up and running would be, a nice addition to the district. We have, on April 20th, we have our meeting. The 21st, there's a get-to-know BOCES. So it used to be that you used to go to BOCES and look at the different offerings that they have. This year, because they don't want to do it in person, they're going to have a virtual meeting. And if you sign up, you get to go and pick up a pie and eat it while you're watching the virtual meeting. So if any of the board members want to do that, make sure I think Nicole already sent out the notice on that. On the 27th, we have our work session, which will be the capital improvement and staff projections for the year. On May 4th is our budget hearing. So more information to come on that. The 18th, important for the district, our budget vote at East Senior. And on May 13th, Harris Beach, which is one of the law firms that we use, they are having their spring special ed update, because there's always changes for the special ed rules. So what we have to abide by. So that'll be interesting to see. And again, that's a virtual meeting from 9 till 11 a.m. Okay, so that's all I have to report for what's coming up. And so now we will have the curriculum cabinet. I see there's quite a few members of the curriculum cabinet, so I don't know who exactly is going to speak. Mrs. Persico's coming up, Mr. Brinker, Mrs. McCartan.
Mr. DePasco as well.
Mr. DePasco.
Dr. Quinn.
Dr. Quinn.
Mr. Shanahan? No.
Mr. He's the new addition.
That's right. You guys didn't realize Mr. Shanahan's working with you now.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you everyone for having us here to address the topics that you wanted to hear a little bit more about today. So we are going to talk a little bit about the general overview of our curriculum cabinet, as well as some updates that we have for you, some content area updates as well. So without further ado. Okay, so Jay's going to talk a little bit about the overview of the curriculum cabinet, and I'll turn it over to you.
Sure, thanks. The overall roles and functions, we have directors and facilitators. So Franco is a director of math, for example, but he's a facilitator of science. Am I speaking to this?
I think you're good.
I can hear you.
I'd rather just speak at the mic. Makes me feel like a singer. So the overall goal is to make sure that every curricular area is covered. Donna McManus is in charge of world languages and E&L. I mentioned Franco in charge of science. UPK. We have everything, even libraries with Ryan McKellar. So we have an administrator in charge, as a facilitator or a director in charge of the entire curriculum. Carm is our overseer. She is the one that makes sure that she's our final say. So what we do, we meet monthly, but it's not just the administrators that meet. And I want to kind of go into that collaboration with teacher leaders. We have 3 layers of teacher leaders. We have department chairs, we have leaders, and then we have coordinators like Nora Murnane for music. So we schedule the whole month around working collaboratively with the teacher leaders. The curriculum cabinet worked with the district and WISTA to define those leaders. So a typical month, Jay Brinker's going to meet with his department chairs. His department chairs are going to have department meetings, and then Franco would attend those department meetings where he's getting data right from the classroom all the way up to the administrator. So we can count when we want to implement and they're going to talk more about a reading program, a literacy math, an AIS, we're all talking. And the beauty thing about the cabinet is we all have a bird's eye view of what's going on in the entire district. So as Mrs. Persico initiates literacy or data, it's not literacy in ELA. Sorry, my mask is, every time I talk, it's coming down. It's not literacy in ELA. It's literacy in CTE, Bob Merkel. It's literacy in math and in science. So we're changing the paradigm of the district where the science teachers, ELA is where literacy, no. The district is where literacy is. So we're able to implement a district-wide plan more effectively. Sorry if I said too much. We're under the time.
No, thank you. Okay, so some updates that we wanted to share with you tonight. Jay just briefly mentioned about AIS opportunities. We are exploring those at elementary, middle, and high school, not only from now till the end of this school year, but next school year as well. Realizing coming off of the pandemic, there will need to be some modifications and adjustments made. So above and beyond what we normally and typically do for AIS, academic intervention support, how can we further support all students and learners in the classroom, given our current structure? So we are in discussions on how to creatively use our time that we have with kids each day for first instruction. So every teacher in the district will be doing some sort of remediation as part of their instruction. That's the goal. We're in those conversations right now. We also talked a little bit already about our literacy focus across all disciplines, district-wide. This year we kicked off 3 strategies that all teachers at all levels in all disciplines would be utilizing in their classrooms. So that was activating prior knowledge, text structure, and also skimming and scanning. So our teachers are diligently implementing those in their classrooms. Our principals have gone in and have observed these in practice. So those are something that we would look to add to next year as well. We don't expect all teachers to be reading teachers, but we do expect teachers to be teachers of reading. So it's everybody's shared responsibility in the classroom. Day-to-days, this is something that we started about a year or so ago, and we look to continue to move forward with next year. Having common assessments that can drive instruction, making modifications to our teaching, and then using that data to plan forward. I believe Matt mentioned already our preparation of the final assessments for our high school students. Again, we're really looking to place that emphasis on remediation and recovering the knowledge that some kids may be in different places. So that's our goal, is to have an emphasis on those final assessments and recovering the content. Reviewing and analyzing staffing, this is something that Jay spearheads each year. He does a tremendous job getting us all on the same page. You want to talk a little bit about that?
I'd love to. So when I first got into the district, I remember Brian Schultz just always yelling about staff. We're a staffing organization. We got to control staffing. And I remember, my previous principal and the principal over at East always raging war about class sizes in this room and class size in this room, and there being an imbalance. And then we would talk to the elementary principals. We try not to deal with the district in terms of silos. We try to deal with it in terms of a district. I'm the principal of West Senior, but I want the same experience as East Senior. The education has to be the same, and the same thing with staffing at all levels. The middle schools need to be the same. What is offered at East is offered at West. What's offered in the middle school is offered, and the same thing with class sizes. So we work really hard on making sure that all the teachers are at full capacity, that we're efficient. Because if we're efficient, we're going to be effective. And then if we're efficient, effective, and level across the district, you're not going to get a phone call that says, boy, my kid at East has a class size of 45, and my student at West has a class size of 12. So we work really hard to really flatten it and making sure that everybody is efficient and the taxpayers' money is at work. So we've done a really good job of that. That's one thing that everybody up here, and Donna and McKellar, everybody does a really good job of making sure that the education in this district is level, and that saves money.
I would agree. There's a lot of collaboration that happens around the staffing piece at the elementary, middle, and high, and the help of our directors and facilitators as well to drive those discussions to make sure that there aren't inequities that put kids at different advantage points. So we thank them for that. Another key curricular update, I know Franco and Holly and Kim will talk a little bit about this as well, is the next generation standards. Full implementation is slated for the fall of '21. So there is some work that needs to be done as we move towards that full implementation. There will be some summer curricular writing opportunities, especially for English language arts and math and science as we move forward with that implementation. New high school elective ideas. Jay and I are going to tag team this one, so we'll start with Jay.
One thing that we're looking at, I know the board has talked about increasing the minimum credits for seniors. Senior year. It used to be 6.5, and then for years ago it went to the minimum, and then we increased it back up to 5.5. We just want to make sure we understand like what would the impact of 300, 500 students collectively, 200 at East, 300 at West. What would happen if we made them take another class? Well, that's going to have a huge staffing impact. We just want to make sure if we make that we provide you the right amount of data. You're looking at possibly having a staffing impact, having to hire teachers to make that move. So we just want to make sure that you get the right information and we're analyzing.
We do have a process in place for promoting or proposing new courses within our district, and it really is a process that starts with a teacher or teachers that have an idea for a course that gets vetted through the department chair. Also then the department facilitator or director moves on to the building principal, and then there's a team that take a look at that before sending it up my way. And if we can feasibly add that course without any staffing implications and just remaining staffing neutral, that's something that we'll give a go. If it can meet the standards and they can speak to the standards that course would meet, we push that forward. And Jay will talk a little bit about one particular example we have going on this year between tech and ELA. Ideas for preparing students for the future. We talked a little bit about, and these are just ideas at this point, we're exploring, a course for seniors named Life After High School, or something along those lines, where we're giving kids an idea of what it's like, to pay rent, to get insurance for your car, balance a checkbook, maybe when you're texting, you're using full sentences instead of abbreviations. These are all things that, kids really don't realize until they're out of high school and on their own, perhaps for the first time when they're dorming at college or away in the service, whatever the case may be. Another idea that came across my desk was something called Reality Check, which I thought was really cool. It's sort of a fair style opportunity for kids where they get a certain amount of money that they have to live off of, and they go around from booth to booth, and they have to pay the bills, and then they have to, buy the food for the week, and what they have left, they realize that, oh my gosh, how do my parents do this on a daily basis? I only have 20 cents left, or I'm in debt. I overextended myself. So giving kids opportunities for real life application, providing that in school before they leave us, is something that we're exploring. Another idea, Capstone. The Capstone Senior Exit Project. We are doing that at middle school in the fall, implementing that for the first time. So that's something potentially that we could explore at the high school as well. Do you want to talk a little bit about that elective?
The tech elective? We've been looking at, Carmen, Ms. Persico was actually looking at different classroom enrollments, and she was working with Jay Winicki on the east side, and they were looking at TV, and it just wasn't drawing for the last couple of years. So they've worked with the department chair, worked with counselors, and looked and actually interviewed students. What would be a better offering? What would be a better class to offer? What's the name of the class? It's a filmmaking.
Yes, it is, there's filmmaking, and then specific names of the
It's a filmmaking,
narrative cinema.
narrative cinema.
Multimedia production.
Okay. So it's 3 classes designed around making movies. We have the technology for television. It wasn't drawn on East, but the process is what was neat to look at, that we collectively analyzed it, and working with the teachers, students, counselors, we're going to see if this new class draws. So they're starting it this year. So the students, and again, it's offered on the east side, but west side students can also take advantage of this class. So that's just an example of how we've worked through this process.
So, sorry, I'm a little shorter than they are, obviously. It's pretty obvious. So I know the next piece that you wanted to know was about reading scores, but we just wanted to kind of give you an overview of where reading scores come from across the district. We do have something called the MAP assessment. That's an overarching piece that lets us know about students. It's something they take independently on the computer. Then we use the DRA, where teachers are actually sitting next to students side by side, listening to them read, and they give us a chance to not only listen to their fluency, but also to get a better understanding if they're able to comprehend what is being read. And then we use things called running records, which are a shorter snapshot. They're similar to a DRA, but again, it's listening to students and seeing if they understand what is on the page. Then we use something called Words Their Way. The Words Their Way gives us an overview about vocabulary understanding and spelling understanding for students. It's just a short assessment. It's basically what you would remember as a spelling test. And teachers analyze that spelling test to understand where students are. Then all of that data goes into a common data sheet, and we collect that across the district, and we analyze where students are over time, at that moment in time, who needs help, what teachers can do, what support staff can do to help them. You don't need it that way.
I'm a little taller. With the Reading, Writing, and Phonics Workshop Program, what we've done is we've implemented a workshop model across the elementaries, and we've begun moving it into the middle schools for vertical alignment. And what it allows us to do is have teachers daily, work daily with students on mini lessons where they expose them to scaffolded skills and strategies that really provide them with the essential components that they need to become better readers and writers. And while doing this, it also gives them an opportunity to have students practice reading and writing, which is also essential, but to work with them on a more individual or small group basis so that they're meeting them where they are, so that students are actually working on books on their level, on writing on their level, and teachers have the opportunity to meet with them and talk to them about where their strengths are and where they need growth, and to be able to really individually work on those areas and give them the practice that they need so that students can progress and become better readers and writers. And then the phonics workshop is an essential piece for our younger readers because that is something that they obviously have to be directly taught. It's done in a workshop model as well. It all collaborates together. And the students are always very excited because they're reading not only books at their level, so they have access to them, they understand them, they can read them independently, but they have choice. And so they're reading things that are of high interest, high engagement, and they're very excited about picking their own books. They feel that they're all, a part of the workshop. And so it's been very successful at the elementary level. We've been implementing that vertical alignment for the past 5 years that we've been doing this, and now it's been moving into the middle school. So that piece will continue to move vertically, which we think is essential in our district so that everybody, again, is in alignment on both sides of town, across every building, no matter where they go. They're all doing it. And this is something that, we've all worked on very diligently to make sure that, again, if you're on the east side, if you're on the west side, you're getting the same thing. And this is this very individualized type of instruction that the students need so that they're always getting met where they are.
The last two bullets, so the reading engagement piece. So we purchased the DRA kits that we had were DRA 2 kits. Last year, we purchased the brand new version of that, which is called the DRA 3. And the reason that we wrote reading engagement in there is when we look at reading scores of students and when we look at students as a whole, we have to triangulate the data. That's why we have a variety of assessments. But the other piece is about how students are engaging in text. So what we found is part of this DRA 3 assessment is looking at student engagement. And we found the older students become, the less engaged they become in reading, because it's reading for more math or science or a book in ELA. They don't take that time to think about reading beyond there. So even our highest students, engagement is low. So we've been working on initiatives across the elementary buildings and the middle school buildings to get students to have more time to read for leisure and engagement, not just when it's ELA time, not just when it's science time or math time. And then the last piece was just about literacy and writing. And I think, this is the great thing about the cabinet, because all of us collaborate so much, that now that we've had these reading pieces settled, we're beginning to understand that reading looks differently in math. It looks different in science. It looks different in social studies. So we have a literacy and a writing initiative that's going on that you probably don't even think about this, but math is really 2 languages. It's the language of symbols, so just like the alphabet, like A, B, C, D is in reading, that's the way math is. There's this symbol language in math, but then there's this written language in math. And what we're seeing across the board now is that students are struggling because Franco will talk a little bit more about this, but we're seeing that it's not that students can't read, it's just they can't read the problem. There's so many things that they have to dissect out of that problem. It's not just the number piece of it, it's being able to understand that a product, like we have this analogy. So a product is like going to buy a product in the store. But in math, a product means something very differently. So we need to work on those literacy strategies, not only in reading, but in things like math as well, so that students can build up their knowledge base. So literacy kind of transcends all of our areas, and writing in math is very different than it looks in social studies or in science or in ELA. We talk about narrative writing, opinion writing, nonfiction writing, so it looks very different. And we have to build some strategies and things in our programs across the district that help students not only in ELA reading, but in reading in those other content areas as well. Is there anything else? No? Okay.
Kim, I never knew a product was something in a store. I always thought it meant just multiplication, so yeah, I learned something tonight. Good evening, everybody. I just want to take a moment before I talk about my slide here in regards to math and science, just to say thank you. Thank you for the support you've given the cabinet. It was 5 years ago, Mrs. Delbo, when you were board president. I remember myself, Mr. Brinker, Dr. Quinn, and as you recall, Marge Borchert, God rest her soul, who at the time was the president of Allendale. She was actually our facilitator at the time when we talked about the idea of the cabinet and making sure no rocks were left unturned. And that support has brought us fast forward to this point. I don't want to minimize anyone else's involvement, especially Mrs. Bussey, who was on the board at the time. But I just wanted to thank all of you, but especially highlight that was 5 years ago. I don't know where those 5 years went. I feel where those 5 years went, but I don't know where they actually went. What's interesting is playing up on the points that my colleagues were just mentioning in regards to ELA. I first started tutoring kids in 1993 on math readings exams. Fast forward to now, in terms of my professional math career, I've been involved with it for 25 years. Of that, 16 have been here at West Seneca Schools. They've been a fantastic 16 years with much, much support. And I bring that up because, I bring up that date of the early 90s because when I look at the tests, the assessment, the tasks, whatever you may call them, of the things that I prepared students for back then versus what they need to be prepared for now, there is a significant difference. And several of those points were already touched on as we heard in regards to the literacy component. What I find interesting too is many times, when we talk about reading, you talk about whether it's your own children, yourself, let's just say for a moment, hypothetically, that someone in here didn't know how to read. That's something people would keep pretty quiet. They'd keep that pretty private, if you will. That's not something you go around bragging about if you can't read. It's almost regarded as a sense of incompetence. But when it comes to math, it's very different. There's almost a badge of honor that comes with, yeah, I can't do math, I was never good at it. Like people don't generally hold back when they weren't good at math or they aren't good at math. Or many times over the years if I've talked to a parent and or a guardian, they'd say it's okay, the child's not good at math. I wasn't good at math either. Well, the good news is mathematics is not a genetic trait. It's not passed on through the chromosomes. So what we're trying to do is, it's paradigm shift. The paradigm shift is we don't want kids going around, we don't want our students going around and saying, I'm not good at math. To me, that's not acceptable. That's never been acceptable. So how do we get students to rise to the occasion to be successful in math, to have a sense of pride when they learn that math, to be engaged in math? And part of that comes from what we're trying to do in terms of these next generation standards, which were, Ms. Persico briefly touched on as she talked about the implementation of this. We are within the implementation period. It got delayed for obvious reasons, COVID-19, for example. And so we are continuing down the road in which New York State has framed out what that implementation looks like. But that implementation certainly comes with a cost. And that goes back to my thank you from earlier. I've been in front of the board several times over my years here in terms of what do we need. And I have to say, Mr. Siebert in particular, there was a time where you're like, just tell us. Well, the good news is, we have told you not directly, but we've worked with Ms. Lewandowski there through the business office with our lists. And it's just a huge thank you in terms of coming through for us, in terms of those finances, those budgets. And of course, those are the folks out there watching this tonight, those of you who have passed our budgets and support the school system. And we greatly appreciate that, because what has that done? That has updated our science books, updated our math books. It has updated a variety of software. I could sit here for the next remainder of the hour and go just through the software alone that we have purchased. Updated our calculators. I mean, I have a whole list here, and I'm sure you don't want me to read all of them. Microscopes, I'm sure you can appreciate that. As Ferris is a chemistry teacher too, in terms of lab equipment, in terms of equipment specific to chemistry rooms and things of that nature. But across the field, whether we're talking a kindergarten classroom, a 5th grade classroom, a 12th grade classroom, it's certainly been appreciated and been looked upon as why we're propelling forward with your support. In addition to that, obviously the curriculum, not only, you can have all the great supplies in the world, right? You can have all the great tools, but if you don't know how to build a house and you have all those tools, the house isn't going up. So in addition to having those tools, those resources, we on a regular basis examine our curriculum as well as our instruction, as well as the assessments we have in place. And that is an ongoing thing. It is a fluid piece. I almost look at this as curriculums written in sand, not in stone. Because as I look at my over 2 decades now in this specific field of math, There is standards every several years. Just think back, if you will, whether it was your own education, your children's education. Think of all the different texts and standards and things you've seen happen throughout the year, the variety of years. And in addition to the science, now the science I've only had in the district for the last 5 years as a curriculum member. I've had that as the facilitator of science. And again, we're doing those similar pieces as I framed out within the science component. Many of you in here know me and know I could talk for hours about this, but I'm gonna stop there. Obviously, if you have questions in the end, feel free to ask. And certainly, if you have questions after today and you'd like to receive any information, documentation, whatnot, sure, let Mrs. Lotson know. We can certainly furnish that. And I'm gonna pass it off to Beck. Okay. So thank you for your time.
So with the COVID and the students on remote learning, we've still been able to use our Teachers College's units of study to support our students. We were able to provide them with online videos where they were able to watch mini lessons, so they were still able to view teachers teaching the skills and strategies that they needed. They were able to participate in the same types of lessons. We were able to provide them with books on their level so that they could continue to read, they could continue to write, and teachers were still able to conference with them. So they were still able to participate in the same model where they were getting the individualized support at their current levels that they needed.
And then the other thing that was implemented with ELA is we bought another program called Newsella. And Newsella basically differentiates a variety of articles and resources, not just for ELA, but for science, math, social studies. So if you're learning about the Declaration of Independence and a student maybe at the middle school is a little below level, you can take that same article and tweak it so it's appropriate for that student to read and the highest reader in the group to read. So that's been an important component, again, where literacy kind of goes through all of our content areas and just providing teachers and students with other resources to make reading materials accessible to all. So it was another way to differentiate in all content areas the reading materials that students were being given.
We couldn't get everybody here in the cabinet because the room would be too big. So I'm going to report on social studies, but just, I know this sounds Pollyanna. Curriculum is the most important thing we do in terms of teaching students. So when I'm going to loop it back to my original slide, everybody's in the cabinet. Every teacher, every aide, everyone that is in front of a student teaching is in the cabinet. It just flows up from the teacher to the leader, to the administrator, to Ms. Persico. So we're giving you kind of an update on the core areas: social studies, math, science, ELA, and finally social studies. John Dabble is the director of social studies, and the 4 things that he wanted to really point out. Number 1, really neat. I think I told you a couple of months ago when I reported on the high schools that I get credit for students. Parents call me up and say, "Thank you. My son or daughter started with half a college tuition paid for. I can't thank you enough." And look, that's the board, that's the community. I get the accolades, but I always deflect it back to where it should be. Social studies does a great job. They work with the college board. We know that. That's AP. However, what John Dabble also works is with Syracuse. We call it SUPA. It's a really bad acronym, but it's Syracuse University Project Advanced. Syracuse trains our teachers. They use text from Syracuse. They come, they verify, they work with the students, but they also work with our staff to make sure that they're teaching our students Syracuse material. So it's not when I taught European history, I created the course. I went to a local college and they certified, they put a rubber stamp. That's not this. This is Syracuse saying, this is what we want the students, this is the standard, very high standard. So a West Seneca student can take these Syracuse and get Syracuse credit. That's a huge badge of honor. And then our parents can go turn those in at their colleges and think of the money that they save. Tuition, books, it's really, the parents feel that and they're always calling us up, and of course the college board AP classes. department, John has worked really hard. He does a lot of local history. So whether it's taking our new teachers on a tour of West Seneca and going to the Ebenezer Museum in town, but also giving our students these virtual field trips. He's worked with the Buffalo History Museum. They're really neat, very informative, but it gives our students both, and he left that out, but I want to plug him on that. Gives them the West Seneca history, but also the greater history of Buffalo. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Persico.
The Social Studies Department is also working on developing an honors course at the 8th grade level that students can participate as early as the fall of this next school year in '21. Very excited to have this opportunity for kids and really giving them a chance to delve deeper into the 8th grade curriculum and extending that in a variety of ways. And now that we have every student with a Chromebook, our opportunities are endless, really. Additionally, I know John is working to explore a potential pilot in the fall for the Seal of Civic Readiness, and that is similar to the Seal of Biliteracy in that it's a credential on a student's diploma. But what's really nice about this is that there is an opportunity to use the middle school capstone project as part of the 6 points that you need to earn that seal. So I think a lot of things are coming together. It's a really great opportunity. We're excited to see where this goes. But again, John is exploring that potential with the department. Any questions?
I just have a couple comments on this. Just to give you a little background of the history of this, 5 years ago, we were faced with $38 million financial shortage, as you all know from the governor, which was not ever given back to us. And so we had a little different structure. We had our superintendent, and then we had a deputy superintendent. And then we did have an assistant superintendent who took a job in another district. So at that point, we thought, how can we be creative and cover all the things that we need to cover? So the cabinet idea came along. And I just want to say that I think that one of the things has happened, it has really helped the relationship between East and West and in the whole town. And now, East often didn't know what West was doing and so forth because they were, but now with you coming from both sides of town and meeting a lot, I think this has really made it an overall plus.
We're a family, we're not at war.
That's right.
Thank you.
They never crossed Union Road before,
And I was alluding to that when I said at the beginning where the principals would wage war against each other.
Right.
We don't wage war.
No.
The students lose.
Right.
If I have a class of 12 and East has a class of 40, am I happy that those East students
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
a class of 40 students? That's not fair.
Yeah.
Level.
And it's really united the
Thank you,
district,
Mrs.
I think.
Calvo.
Also,
Thank
the stipends were less than what we had previously been putting out, for the administrative picture. So that saved us quite a bit of money because your stipends aren't, as much. And our graduation rate has increased since the cabinet concept. And I'm grateful for that. We're into the 90s. So I just want to commend you on that. And our backs were against the wall at the time of what to do, and this was, also you've been invited to national places, education places to present the cabinet idea. So it is so unique that other districts throughout the country are interested in this concept. So thank you so much for all that you do.
And with what we're doing, literacy and AS, our graduation rate will skyrocket. We're on a pause because of COVID, with the data, but with what Carm's done with the data analysis and the literacy, you
Yeah.
watch. We're right on the precipice.
Yeah, so I'm proud of all you guys.
Thank
Thanks.
you. We love the district.
Any other questions, comments?
Thank you.
Yep, we appreciate all your hard
Ms.
work.
Barrisk, if I could just say one last thing, just I guess sort of sum this all up. It's been quite a struggle, obviously, for every school district across the country to try to keep moving initiatives forward. I just want to thank all of our educators and all of our folks that have come together really and worked very hard. I mean, again, you've got, a group of administrators up here, and as Jay said before, and as Carm said, it doesn't stop with this group of people that are right here. So many teachers working hard in their classrooms, our folks coming together to make sure that the teachers have what they need to be able to get things done. It's very difficult to try to move forward. There's a lot of things that we did have to pause on, whether it was day-to-days or whatever, that just trying to make sure that we can continue with some of these things, some sense of normalcy. And I just want to thank everybody for their efforts, collectively throughout the district in trying to move some of these initiatives forward. So anyway, thank you for being here tonight.
It does take a village, and you are part of the village.
You're like the village people.
All right, Clary, I'll see you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, no, we have no public except for a couple of newspaper individuals. So I'm not going to read the public comments because we have no public that are here to speak. And we haven't received any questions on the BOE question on our website, so there's no need to do that. Okay, so if we can go to 4A, we want to create 9 new positions, 1 special ed teacher, and 8 temporary elementary teachers. This is just till the end of the year, and it is to, because we still have to have the K through 1 6 feet apart, and so we needed additional teachers, and we needed additional teachers to make sure we had the virtual component also, that at that age, it's tough to do the live streaming that the other teachers have done. So could I have a motion to create those positions?
I'll move.
I have a
Okay, Mrs.
question.
Bussey, Mr. Siebert for a second. And any discussion?
Yes, please.
Yes.
On my agenda, 8A only has 1 position, and it's education of children with handicapping conditions in elementary 8. This is,
Yeah.
4A or 8A?
we're on 4A, correct?
Number
Right
eight, 8 teachers.
Yeah, there's,
Okay, understood. My apologies.
Yep. And I just would add, too, that the vast majority of these people were already serving the district in another capacity, whether they're like a teaching assistant or doing something else, too. So it's not as though it's a net add of all these people. These are people, for the most part, who are very familiar with the district and the buildings in which they're working in many cases.
We actually received a letter in our email from one of the teachers thanking
Yep.
us, and it was very nice.
Yeah, it was.
It was one of your teachers. She
Yes.
sent us a nice letter. Thank you.
yeah, and it's great that we can do this to provide the services, because if we're putting more AIS, academic service, at the upper levels, but if we can nip this in the bud at the lower levels, that will help us the most to move forward. So any other discussion on that? Okay, can I have a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, carried, 7-0. Okay, and then for 4B, we have some retirements. We have a couple of retirements. We wish those people well. We have some unpaid leaves. We have, okay, so if we could just have a motion for 4A and B to approve the resignation and the unpaid leaves.
I'll make a motion.
Was it C?
It's
it's B and
Is that
C.
B and C?
B and C.
I'll move.
Okay, Mrs. Pesia, and second? I'll second. Okay, Mr. Bedient. And any discussion on those? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, carried 7-0. Okay, and then we have, for D, we have the, all the temporary
appointments.
teachers. Pardon?
They're the appointments. They were
Yeah, the
created and now
appointments,
appointed.
we
Yep.
created the positions in A, and now we are filling those appointments in D.
I'll move.
So can I have a vote to accept those?
I'll move.
Okay, Mrs. Bussey, can I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Kwiatkowski, any discussion on those?
No, you notice it was a shift. Some resigned their other position to take this one.
Right, right, yeah. And luckily,
Chris
we-
Evans has been with us a long time. She's, you know,
Yeah.
you know, she's a good
luckily,
teacher.
we didn't have to go through this whole interview process. We already had the people in other positions, either substituting or something else, and so it was great that we could do it fairly quickly. Okay, can I have any other discussion? Can I have a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Aye.
Did you say
I said aye. Opposed.
opposed? Okay. So that is carried 6-0.
We do have a couple of
6-1.
introductions, too.
Oh,
6 to 1.
or 6-1. Did you want to, Dr. Cervoni
Dr.
here?
Cervoni?
Did you want to
Introductions.
introduce?
I know we have Alexandra here.
Sure. Alexandra, you want to stand up for a minute? So I'd like to introduce you to Alexandra Twitchell, who comes to us with some experience at Iroquois schools. She's just got approved to be appointed as a science teacher with us. Alexandra, I will tell you, I heard so much enthusiasm about you and what you bring. And I know some of our board members are part of the process, some of the administrators in the room. And even though you're certified in science, or you have a little experience teaching French as well. For a short substitute stint, so multifaceted, but just wanted to welcome you and congratulate you. Excited about what you're going to do for our students in the area of science. And Mr. Frank, I don't know if you have anything you'd like to add. I know.
I know Ms. Bears, Mr. Seibert, we wanted to hit a home run. We hit a grand slam. We have two districts that are very angry at us.
That's good.
A background check, my phone rang. It was a principal at another district, I don't want to name the two, but he started yelling at me and said, you can't take her, she's on our committee to improve this and this and this. And Pat Smith got some phone calls from another district that said, please don't take her, she's our #1 hire. We hit a grand slam. So I'm so excited. Her mom's coming in next week, decorate the room. She asked me if she could, I'm like, yes, don't ask. My mom's coming in and set up the room.
Alexandra, congratulations, welcome.
Yes.
Welcome.
Yeah, Mr. Siebert and I were on the interview committee, and we were very impressed with the process that we go through to put on new hires, and a very validated the hiring process that we have in the district.
We had one additional introduction as well, too. We actually, Mr. Andrew Winnick is the Director of Special Education. So, and I guess I just wanted to, I remember personally interviewing Mr. Winnick back in the fall of 2017, being very impressed. He came to us, Niagara Wheatfield, Assistant Director of Special Services over there. I know your background's as a school psychologist. So, yeah, no, I got it in there. But I just remember being very impressed just with your technical knowledge and, sort of creative approach to problem solving. Went through a rigorous interview process, Mr. Winnick, and I think you rose to the top within that process. You've served the district in a variety of capacities for us, through pupil services and special education over the time that you've been here. You've stepped up when asked to do so, and again, just that creative approach to problem solving and calm, thorough, poised approach. Just really appreciate that, and really looking forward to be working with you in this new capacity moving forward. So thank you, Mr. Winnick.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, and I appreciate the interview process, and just echo what my colleagues have said. I'm just thrilled to be staying in the district. I can come into work tomorrow and just keep doing what I've been doing, which is a great feeling.
Yeah.
And I just appreciate it. I'm glad to be here, and I foresee great things, moving forward for the district and for our special education departments. So thank you.
Thank you. And since Mr. Winnick was Assistant Director of Special Ed for 5E, we will be abolishing that position. And then we have for,
Does they have to be done separate?
No.
Abolishing it?
no, just create, do we have to vote separate for abolishing?
That's fine.
Oh, okay, all right.
Thank you. I'll
Missed
move
that
on
one.
that.
Okay, Mrs. Bussey, can I have a second? Mr. Siebert, any,
What are we voting on?
To
for
abolish the
4E to abolish the Assistant Director. 4E, abolish the Assistant Director of
Okay, I
Special
got
Ed.
it. Sorry, it was at the bottom. I'm looking at the next page.
Oh, okay. Okay, any discussion on that? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, carried 7-0. Okay, then we have some, in 5, classified resignations, leaves of absence, some appointments, and we had some cleaners and a couple other positions for CSEA, some permanent appointments. They've finished their probationary time. For 6, we have coaches, subs, and preferred building subs. So can I have a motion to approve those?
I'll move.
Okay, Mrs. Bussey, can I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Kwiatkowski, any discussion on those? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, carried 7-0. Then we have reports, new business. We have for the e-senior for the Foreign Language Club, we got a donation of $2,600 for a scholarship.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. We love to see the college kids get a little help with their finances, because college has just become crazy expensive. And then for the facility inspection technology, and then we have a student calendar for next year. And so can I have a motion to approve 8, A, B, and C?
I'd like to do C separately if possible.
Okay, so can 8, A, and B?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Mr. Kwiatkowski, can I have a second?
I'll second.
Mrs. Pescia, any discussion on those? Yes? Oh, 7 and 8. Yeah, 7 was the reports. So 7 and 8A and 8B. That's my little voice in the back that tells me when I don't do what I'm supposed to. Okay, so for 7, 8A and 8B, any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Carried 7-0. Okay, so then we have the student calendar for C. Can I have a motion to approve that?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Mr. Siebert,
I'll second.
Mr. Kwiatkowski, second. Any discussion?
I would like to discuss the student calendar starting, for school day, starting on Rosh Hashanah.
Okay, and what would you like to?
I know that it has been brought to the attention of to the district that we are starting the student calendar year on Rosh Hashanah, which is a religious holiday in the Jewish faith. And I'm just wondering why?
It's in line with the BOCES calendar, for one thing, so that's what I did emailed back a few weeks ago. I hadn't heard anything from anybody about possibly changing that, so calendar's pretty tight, I will be honest with you, just in generally speaking. Looking at it, we've had a Juneteenth this year as well, so there's a limited number of days that we can pick from. Calendar committee decided that it was still appropriate to move forward with this, so that's where, I didn't hear any feedback, so that's why I put it to the board to make a motion to move forward with this, so.
I did express concern with it, but
Okay.
What day is that on? What day of the week?
Tuesday the 7th.
Tuesday,
Tuesday, September 7th?
Correct.
the day after Labor Day.
Yeah, the first day of school.
So if we were to start on Wednesday, we would have to find another day somewhere, is that the
Yeah.
case? Is that what I just remember there being.
We did discuss this.
Probably you sent out an email, I'm assuming, about it. Okay. And what were the options of the days? If there was another day-
You could look at, ultimately speaking, you have to have 186, you have to have the 186 teacher days. Students need to have minimally 180 days. So some of the other days you looked at, the day before Thanksgiving, I think was a possibility.
I like that.
Can our Jewish students have an excused day?
Right, I agree with you on
I
that.
think.
I think that would be
I think you
nice.
have to.
Yeah.
Why not, why
Yeah.
not excuse?
I don't believe that you could ding somebody for
Yeah.
not coming if they have legitimate religious reasons for not being there.
yes.
So, one of the other days looked at too was potentially the day, I guess they would call it the day, the 18th, so on that day after Easter. I think was another day that was potentially considered, so.
So they would be excused if they
Yes.
wanted to be? Okay.
So, yeah, the 18th would probably be better on the day before Thanksgiving.
No, I like the day before Thanksgiving. I think it's a good day to have.
Okay, so do we want to table
go
this
hunting?
and look at it again, or what do we want to do?
Personally, the only day I would even consider would be the one after Easter. I wouldn't want to do it any other day. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know much about the Jewish faith. I don't know how many kids I don't know anything about it. So I'm just throwing it out there to the board that you guys, I would care about the day after Easter, whether that's a day or not, but I wouldn't want to screw up like the day before Thanksgiving, knowing what goes on. Sometimes, it's a pretty busy day, or I don't want to take away from the spring break or something like that.
Yeah, the primary reason was just we looked at the BOCES calendar, just said we'll just stay in line with BOCES. That was ultimately, I think, the biggest decision maker, so.
It's
Throwing
a,
my opinion out there.
Yeah,
it's a serious holiday for the Jewish students.
It is.
And I really think they should be able to be excused
And you
from
might have
this.
staff
Yeah.
First
too.
day of school,
It is the first day of school.
Yeah.
right, so that would be the only reason I would consider the day after, do we have a day this year after Easter off? Do we typically do
yeah,
that?
because it's next Monday, so,
Is it, so
yeah.
we're off all next
The
week
whole
plus
week.
Monday?
Yeah.
correct. Next week, yeah, just
Good.
next
So my
week.
kids will be home then.
Yes.
You need to plan for that.
Is
You
there-
need to plan for that.
Is there no possibility to move the random Tuesday superintendent conference day to that day? It's on 11/2. I know
11/2.
having a random Tuesday off in the middle of the week is a hardship for parents as it
Yeah.
is, so we could fix both problems.
It's election day, so the problem is we have people coming and voting in our sites, we're polling places. We have 3 of our buildings that are polling places, so that's one of the reasons
Yeah.
behind it.
You don't want to,
That's a whole
Yeah.
other.
That's a
Yeah.
whole nother.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's a
What
whole
schools
nother
do we
thing.
currently have in our bowling?
This is actually one of them, and then you've got, Clinton was just removed,
Yep.
thankfully, and then you have West Senior and West Middle,
Okay.
so.
West Senior and West Middle?
Correct.
Are we, yeah, so I don't,
Yeah. You
I mean, again, I'm.
can't have people voting and, you know,
No, no,
and
no, I
students in the
absolutely don't
building.
want that.
Yes,
We are
yeah,
actively
definitely can't
hoping
have that.
to Someday not have that happen,
We,
right?
yeah, there's been a real big push, Jan, I'm sure you can speak to it, Mary, but there's been a real big push in Albany to try to have it so that schools, other organizations, institutions can say no to being a polling place. Clinton was, and it was very problematic just for the setup for Clinton, it just the way it was,
Some of the
structured
parking
over there.
was an issue.
That became an issue, so one of the issues that we talked to them, they were able to identify, we gave them some suggestions, but another place to actually have the polling place take place, so.
Yeah, that worked out really well.
What school is the board vote going to be in? Is that East Senior again?
East
Yes,
Senior.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah,
On the 18th.
and they've got that locked down already.
They usually separate the school
The gym,
part.
yeah, it's completely
yeah.
separate,
Right,
yeah.
right. Yeah, there's an easy entrance.
with national or voting days and stuff like that, what happens with that, it's the traffic.
Yeah.
And we had
Yes,
an
yeah.
incident several years ago with a young lady that got hit at West Senior, so I think that's why we don't want school open those days.
You see a lot of districts take off, to give it like a superintendent's conference day on election day.
Correct.
so.
What about the superintendent's day on 3/18?
So that still counts as a day of attendance, so just so you know, you get 4 superintendent's conference days per year that do count as days of attendance for students, even if the students aren't in session on those days, just so you know. So that counts as toward the 180 session days.
Okay.
So that's not really gaining us anything.
Well, if the students aren't in session, couldn't we have a superintendent? I believe we did that this year where we had a superintendent's conference day so that we could start the school year a few days later as well.
We actually had 4, I think it was 4 consecutive days that we had
Correct.
for the teachers. So I'm sorry, what are you suggesting?
Making September 7th superintendent's conference day instead of starting school on Rosh Hashanah?
The only thing, what if we have staff that,
Staff report on that day?
Yeah, if it's a superintendent conference day. You could,
So the concept of that is you're having conferences, like that, I mean, that's why the staff's
Well,
here.
it would be more of a planning for the
Like a
teacher
plan,
because they
yeah.
wouldn't be able to have conferences because they haven't seen the
Right,
kids yet.
Right, no, that's what I'm just trying
Yeah.
to, that's,
Yeah.
that's, the kids are off because you were doing stuff with the staff.
yes, correct. Correct.
I guess we would, and not to, belittle the holiday, but do we have many Jewish families that this would impact?
Yeah, I'm not aware.
Doesn't
yeah.
matter.
I think that is what districts do. They kind of look at their population, and if it were a predominantly Jewish population, then they would, be more sensitive to those holidays. And the same thing is true with the Muslim religion or some that would not, have a big majority. But West Seneca is predominantly, I would say, a Christian community, and that's why we have the Easter. It's a simple explanation, I
right.
realize. But I certainly think the students should be excused, though, legally, if they want to be.
One of the issues, too, is we have a substantial number of kids that go to BOCES programs, whether they be CTE programs
Yeah.
or, like for special education programming or alternative programming. So that was one of the other things that was brought up as well, is that those students would then be missing their first day of school at their respective programs as well. So it's a tough situation. I full agreement, like I struggle with myself, so I think you're bringing up a lot of really valid points. It's just, we're unfortunate, this will happen in 36 years, again, I'm told, this particular configuration, so.
I
Okay.
think it should be stipulated that we're not going to, we will allow students, and also staff, if we have Jewish staff too.
Yeah, I mean, you have mechanisms for that, you
Yeah.
certainly
It
do.
would be a current policy, I believe, right?
Yeah, it's not, no one's going to
I
get,
think it's fair that
yeah.
they would be,
Yeah.
They should have the option to be off.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, so all in favor of approving the calendar the way it is? Can I have a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, carried 6-1. Okay, then we have the policies in 8D, and I'd like also to make a recommendation to waive the second reading of those policies. So can I have a motion to approve those policies?
You don't want to read them, Diane?
Not today.
Okay.
If you want to, Mrs. Bussey, you can,
No, I've been there
perfectly.
before.
They're lengthy.
Just reading through them is
I know
enough.
3 times, I know.
Yes, 3
Yeah.
times, yes.
Yeah, I know. I'll move on that, though.
Okay,
Diane.
Mrs. Bussey, thank you.
Just to save both of us from reading it.
Thank you so much, thank you. And can I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Kotowski, all in favor, any discussion on those, any of the policies? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried 7-0. Okay, so then we are adopting the budget. $641,980. And so we're approving that budget, and we need a roll call vote on the budget. First of all, can I have a motion to accept the budget?
I will move.
May I
Can
ask
I-
a question?
Yes.
This is the 0% increase, correct?
For the
This-
taxpayers.
For tax-
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
I'll move.
we're spending more
Yeah,
money,
we're
but not
spending more money, but
not
we're, any
raising
money
taxes.
extra that the governor doesn't give us or that we
Yeah,
overspend.
this is just the budget, yes.
Yes, we take out of our reserves, so this is just the budget.
So this would be a zero tax increase for
Well,
our
we still have to
taxpayers.
officially
Yeah.
set the tax levy, but it just.
Right, this is
yeah,
just the
this-
budget.
Yeah, this is step
To
one,
say this-
basically.
This
You
is,
find a
yeah,
budget.
first step of the budget. Okay, so can I have a motion to approve this budget?
I'll move.
Nobody wants to?
I said Mary
Mrs. Bussey, can I have a second?
I'll second.
Mrs. Delbo?
As long as it's a
Any
zero.
discussion on the budget? Okay, and we will have a budget forum in May, beginning of May. So we need a roll call vote. Mr. Siebert?
Yes.
Mr. Kwiatkowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Pesha?
Yes.
Mr. Bedient?
Yes.
Mrs. Bussey?
Yes.
Mrs. Delbo?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So carried 7-0. Okay, then we have for F, we have the different propositions for the annual meeting and the election for this. And there are 4 propositions. The first one is the budget. The second is expenditures for the bus reserve. And we need to make for Proposition 2, we need to make an amendment. It says that we will purchase 3 full-size 65-passenger buses at a maximum cost of $118,200 each, and 3, it says 60-passenger buses, but those are only 30-passenger buses. There was a typo.
Yeah.
So, so that needs to be...
It's the same cost, it just
It's
meant
the
to
same
say-
cost. The
yeah.
cost is the same, it was just a typo. And then, so we want to take the money, and that money is already in a reserve for us to just draw from. And then Proposition 3 is to increase and extend that reserve. And Proposition 4 is to establish a capital reserve fund. So can I have a motion to accept those. Mr. Bedient, can I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Pesha? And again, we need to have a roll call vote. Mr. Siebert?
May I have
Oh,
discussion, please?
I need discussion, yes.
I just want to double check, 3 and 4, we're putting this on the ballot to be voted on, that's what we're approving right now?
Correct.
We're currently, if it's approved, let's say the voters approve it, because I personally think these are an amazing things to add on to it, I think they're great.
They have reserve funds.
Are they funded immediately, or do we then have a discussion about funding them? Once they're approved to form the quote-unquote I like look at them as savings accounts. How does that process work?
Jan, did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, Ms.
Sure. So when we put it up for the vote and voters authorize it, that's just establishing the fund.
That's what I was wondering.
The actual funding will depend on a couple of factors, whether we have the funds at the end of the year, excess funds, and we always seek authorization from the board to contribute to those reserves. So they're two independent actions.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Wanted to be clear on that, 'cause
Nope, it's a good question.
I think it's a great idea,
Yeah.
so there's no, at this point, there's no cost from the district.
No.
No.
We're
Or
creating
to
the
the
ability
taxpayers, right.
to save.
You're
for-
creating savings accounts.
Yeah, I
It's,
think
yeah.
that's amazing.
This was in the state legislature just recently, and it was approved. And this is unusual, to have another bank
Yeah.
account that we could, add to. Hopefully, we'll get something to add to it. But anyway, it's the structure is there in case we have funds that we can put there.
Right.
It doesn't mean it automatically grows.
That's what I was just wondering, like, what the
Yeah.
process was.
And it
So we're
doesn't
not
cost
asking
us
them to even
anything.
fund anything. at
But this was
point.
just
No. That's
approved,
the
this was
taxpayers.
approved
Correct.
about 2 weeks ago in Albany.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's great. I mean, the bus thing has been amazing, I think. A great way to do it, so we never have to be put in the position of not spending money to fix a bus. So I think to do it with capital improvement is another great thing to do.
Well, when you do it with the capital improvement, you look at it, you're looking at the 75 cents on a dollar too. So the more that we can put away into that reserve, as little or as much as it possibly could. Obviously, we have a second phase, a third phase, and a fourth phase somewhere down the line. Having that money there will not increase our debt service, so that helps us tremendously.
And there is a question about special ed, spending that's involved in this particular legislation, because sometimes our special ed costs are so escalated, and
Is there a chance in the future that may be an opportunity to create a fund for that?
correct.
Yes, there's also,
Have we done any sort of
We have to wait for the
throw
state to
support
approve
behind
it.
that?
I-
or anything?
Yeah,
I've
well, there's a lot of
spoken
lobbying
to our
going
legislators,
on.
yeah.
Okay.
A lot of lobbying.
The other thing they're talking about doing is having, because it can be very unpredictable, special education spending. So like if you have, a student move into the district that may, require, a great deal of services, there's actually talk of having the funding that the district that they're coming from set aside for that year travel with the student. That's been brought up on a number of different occasions. We're a larger district, but you have some smaller districts out there that, maybe, a fraction of the size of ours, that if, a couple of kids move in, and again, these students deserve the support. They deserve whatever it is, but if you didn't plan for it, it could be very difficult. There are students right now, I can tell you that, that the services, their needs are so intense, it could be close to $100,000 a year for programming. So imagine a small, Mary's, Mary, you're doing, So imagine, a smaller district or any district saying, we didn't budget for this. So if the money that was set aside in the original district were to follow that student from district to district, so that's been discussed for a little while now, but it seems like it's getting a little bit more traction, a little bit more conversation, so.
It helps the smaller districts.
It sure does. It help us too. It's if you budgeted for a person, you want to, that they're saying that money should follow, so.
Just for the 1 year though.
Yes, correct.
And our Assemblyman, Burke, is really, we're educating him on this too, and he's very open to the pushing for something like this. I met with him about 3 weeks ago, and he's very open to push for it now that he's aware of it. And I think it's hopeful that we're going to get this passed.
Good.
Sorry to take
No, it's a good conversation.
No, it's always good to know stuff, educate ourselves. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, we need a roll call vote. Mr. Siebert?
Yes.
Mr. Kwiatkowski?
Yes.
Ms. Pesha?
Yes.
Mr. Obedient?
Yes.
Mrs. Bussey?
Yes.
Mrs. Delbo?
Yes.
And I vote yes, so that's carried 7-0. Okay, then for the election, we have officials. that are at East Senior, and we have to approve that list. So this is 8G. So can I have a motion to approve that?
So move.
Mrs. Bussey, can I have a second? Mrs. Pesha, any discussion on those? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried 7-0. Okay, for 8H, we have an extension for the Associate Superintendent of Administrative Operations. We have to approve that contract, so can I have a motion to approve that?
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Kwiatkowski,
I'll
can I have a second? Mr. Siebert, any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Aye.
Okay, carried 6-0, 6-1. Oh, can't count. For I, we have the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Operations, and we have that contract that needs to be extended. And can I have a motion to extend that?
I'll move.
Mr. Kwiatkowski, can I have a second?
I'll second. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Ms. Bussey.
Mrs. Bussey? Any discussion?
Well, these are extensions of 1 year of their present situation. So this will be addressed again next year.
Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, carried 6-1. And then we have the contract for the secretary to the superintendent. Can I have a motion to accept that contract?
I'll move.
Mr. Kwiatkowski, can I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Siebert, any discussion?
Everyone on the same page with this? I know there's, Mary and I seem to have different understandings of what we were voting on before the meeting. Does
I
everyone-
thought we talked to everybody
I'm just
today.
asking everyone
Oh.
else. Mary and I had two different thoughts on what we were voting on.
Well, mine is, in my opinion,
I don't know what we could,
well, there's nothing, I'm not gonna, I approved both the 1 years, I was hoping for a 1 year. So nothing against the person, it's just that due to the financial conditions we have right now, we don't know where we're at. I was hoping that we could do a 1 year. But that's my personal, so I'm voting no just because I wanted a 1 year. I approved 2 1 years, I wanted a third 1 year.
Okay, any other discussion?
What is the cost of this? Do you know? What is this costing us?
For the increase, or?
Yeah, for a 3 year, or I mean, per year. What's going to cost us for 1 year to, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we can discuss this publicly, but I guess we're talking about the specifics of the
I
contract.
don't want to say salaries, yeah.
something
No.
we could discuss.
No.
Yeah.
Do you want to call an executive?
You can call one.
Are you interested in it?
Well, I just know that I've heard other questions about it. Different people have different ideas what they're voting on. So I just want to make sure we're on the same
Why don't
page.
you,
Do we want to go in executive and discuss
for
this?
a few minutes?
I'll call an executive. Someone wants to second it.
I'll second it.
Sure.
Okay,
Can we just, for a few minutes?
so we're going to can we do this?
Yes. you can go into
Call us
Vote to
after?
executive to
Okay,
discuss.
so it's to discuss the contractual business for a
Employment history
particular,
of a particular individual.
employment of a particular individual. Okay, and we will be back hopefully shortly. Okay, we're back from our executive session, and on the table is a discussion about the contract for the secretary to the superintendent. Any other discussion? Okay. To approve the contract, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, carried 5-2. Okay, then could I have a motion for 8K and the financial reports 9? And that takes us to the end of the meeting. Can I have a motion to approve those?
I'll move.
Okay, Mrs. Bussey.
I'll second.
Mr. Kwiatkowski, any discussion? Okay, let's vote on this. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, carried 7-0. And since we have no public to speak unless either of the reporters or anybody else?
I may as well introduce myself. I talked with the two of you on the phone earlier today, but my name is Jacob Tierney. I'm the new reporter for the Sun. I look forward to working with all of you.
Okay, great. Welcome aboard.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome, Jacob.
Okay.
All right, we get back to you.
Yeah, yes, yeah. And does anybody on the board have any, for 11, have any discussion of any kind?
I have two things I'd like to discuss, but Ed, go first.
No, you go first.
Okay. The first thing that I'd like to discuss, I'd like to revisit a policy that we adopted as a board back in January. The policy number is 8330, and it has to do with the materials, objection to instructional materials and controversial issues. So we approved this policy back in January, and it's been brought to my attention that some language is now missing from the new policy that we revised. We actually created 8330. It used to be listed under 8320. And I'd like to revisit this policy as a board and bring in our library media specialists, our librarians, and their supervisor to discuss this and
Okay,
let them
Nicole-
know how they feel the policy is not detailed enough based on the revision, and it kind of leaves us open for some issues.
Okay, Nicole, so what do we do?
I'll pull it and then,
Okay,
yeah, I'll pull it.
and we can look at it at the next meeting? Okay, all right, great, okay.
Are you saying the language was revised?
The language was revised in the policy, and it's not as detailed as the previous policy.
So there's an omission?
Correct.
Well, so a lot, I think, if I'm incorrect in this, a lot of times what they're doing is they're going through and streamlining. And I believe that's BOCES doing that.
BOCES is doing it, yes.
BOCES is doing it, they're streamlining some stuff, so now, since it was streamlined, my guess, and I don't know, this is some people thought maybe it leaves us a little too open.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's changed, sometimes some things are omitted because they're already in a policy someplace else. And I don't know if that's the case, I know Nicole is really up on all the policies and she can.
She has that one memorized,
let us know.
actually, if
Yeah.
you wanted to read it to us.
I'm waiting for Kate to pop her head up somewhere.
Yeah.
Could you send us a copy of that before our next meeting?
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you so much. Okay, any other?
Yeah, I actually have one other thing that I'd like to discuss. I brought it to the attention of the board. I brought it to the attention of Mr. Bystrack as well. I hold before me a letter dated March 12th, 2021, from the Erie Niagara School Superintendents Association. And it's a letter to Governor Cuomo. And in this letter, the superintendents from 33 local school districts have signed off on asking Governor Cuomo to have New York State Department of Health reevaluate the criteria for schools. And our superintendent's signature is missing from this, and I'd like to discuss why we felt it was not necessary for West Seneca to be represented
Sure.
in this.
Yep, that's a
particular-
professional organization that I belong to, so it's not so much of a district thing as it is my profession. I just didn't feel that it was necessary. The CDC guidance I knew was going to be coming out. It was speculated to be coming out within the week, and it did come out a few days later. It articulated that and just strengthened the argument, essentially. So it's not that I disagree with it. I just, at that point in time, I felt as though the CDC language would be strong enough, and the governor at that point in time would have the ability to be able to take a look and make their own decision, along with the state health department, the state education department. So I've been actually very proud of the district's response and all of our staff that have worked here very hard, worked through a lot of challenges. One of the things that I think is interesting when I talk with colleagues, some of my colleagues in other districts, is one of the things they're dealing with is a lot of what I would call labor relations issues, whether there be formal grievances and complaints and things like that. And I'm going to tell you that we are not dealing with those things in this district. People have really rolled up their sleeves and worked very hard and very diligently to try to make this work. I could literally sit here for an hour and a half talking about all the different things that people have done and lengths they've gone to. So I think we're moving in a good direction right now. I would also say, too, we have more kids back in person in session than many, if not most, of the districts in the area as well. So I think our folks have been very committed to trying to get kids back in session. So.
Okay, anyone else have anything?
I was happy when I saw the graduation plans that were posted. hopefully that can really happen for our kids.
UB canceled all their events, so.
Yes, yeah.
Just University of Buffalo had canceled all their events, so we couldn't do the traditional, so they had to start doing some other planning.
Oh, so we're not going to UB.
No, UB's, I'm sorry, Jan,
It's
yeah,
canceled.
UB has canceled all of their events through August.
So we'll have to find another,
No, well,
We're looking
I
at
thought they
East.
were-
I thought they were working on it.
They
Well,
are.
they
Yeah.
did.
Yeah,
East
that's
came
what I
up
thought
with
you
a
were
nice
covering.
idea, and then West came up with another idea.
I see,
Yeah.
I'm behind on that then, I didn't get
Yeah,
that.
East is looking to utilize the new turf field
Correct.
in a socially distanced manner. West has been exploring the idea. That was very well received last year of the drive-through. Again, a lot of parents reached out and were very pleased with that, so.
It was nice, I just want
It
to make
was.
sure we do something, well, on campus is great.
Yeah, I think honestly, once West's field is, and everything is all set to go again, I think there could be a future for us hosting our own
Right.
ceremonies here. We're going to
Could
these
even
great
put
new
tents up and
facilities.
everything.
Yeah, there's a lot you
Yeah,
can
different
do.
options, yeah.
Just we cannot eat on the fields. Our athletic director keeps telling me that we're not allowed to eat on the field, so.
A lot of
No
districts-
gum.
Yeah.
A lot of districts use their stadiums or their
Yeah.
athletic facilities anyway, they have for years.
I think people like to be close to home,
Yeah.
so,
There's no, like,
Save money too.
so they're
Yeah.
working- they're working
Yes, you
on
would.
it, But like West wouldn't go use the stadium at East, like that's not.
I think that was a non-starter, to be quite honest with you.
We can paint it.
We are one West Seneca.
We can repaint it.
Put a big decal in the middle.
All right.
Yeah.
I think
You
we
could just
could,
sit people the other way, and then it looks like a funny shaped block letter
There you
W.
go.
no, I think the soccer field would be a better
Well, if
idea.
you turn the E on its side, it looks like a W. That's what I tried to convince
Right.
people, but they didn't, that
People like
didn't
that.
carry as much water as you might imagine, so.
Okay, anyone else have anything?
Makes
Mr.
a great
Bedian,
idea.
did you?
I'm just gonna do a couple of things here, and this is, I don't know, similar to, no, it's not similar to Jody brought it, but we're, I know we had agreed to do a letter asking about changing the music distancing.
That was
I
sent.
believe it's been sent out and everything.
Yeah, and we got a copy of that.
I just wanna thank everybody
Yeah.
for doing that, and, everyone that worked on it and got it out. I believe our probably music department and our whole district appreciates that.
The CDC guidance, by the way, does reduce the distance that's required, so if the state adopts that, that'll be
Because of the
reduced.
letter.
It's because of our letter specifically, they said, yeah.
So I do appreciate that. I was, but secondly, I do appreciate the board and, everyone again supporting the district parent council getting formed. If I'm not mistaken, a good majority of schools are represented as of now. So we're really happy to see that. It seems like the parents are, coming together on that. So again, appreciate everyone supporting that. That's one of the places I got my start in getting involved, whether you like the idea or not. But all kidding aside, it's nice to see something like that. And then the committee that Mary's working on seems to be coming along really great. So I appreciate all the work in that. I just want to throw out there that my one kid, Angus, this is a personal thing, how great this district is doing with the in-person learning. We were able to get him to go 2 days. And it's amazing what a different kid that is. So I do appreciate you focusing on finding ways to get these kids in the schools. And my older kids I think they're now 3 days every other week, or like, it's just, I see completely different kids when they go to school compared to when they're home, as far as enthusiasm. And on a side note, the amount of the teachers that are just so stressed out over my son having some issues, and they're taking it personally they feel like they're failing him. I don't believe there's many teachers in this district failing our kids at this time. Any that I know of, I think are doing an amazing job. So I just wanted to get that out there, that sometimes these teachers might be taking a lot of this personally, when it's really just the environment that
It's
they're in.
situational, it really is.
Oh, yeah.
She's not failing my child, and I'm only speaking again personally, but it's just amazing how much everyone is helping. I mean, even all the way up to the letter we got, we're working with the, what's that called when the kid,
Committee on Special Education.
Committee on Special Ed, like, we're working on getting some testing for him and stuff, but I just amazed at how well everything's going, and I just appreciate, I really want to see these kids back in, and I appreciate everyone. Conversely, one of my kids was sick, and they were able to still attend all their classes today, even though it was online, so I do hope that we find a way to make that a continuous thing for kids that can't make it to school. So that's all, I just want
Yeah.
to throw that out there. Again, I'm only speaking on my kids, and I know that's not what I'm supposed to be doing, but it needs to be said, how great things are going with that.
I'm
So,
sure that, our folks appreciate the kudos from you, Ed. I'm sure that
Thank you.
it means a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, you brought up the group, the Slice group. Peter has a statement, and I want to, before he starts a statement, I want to thank everyone that, in the community that is signing up and trying to get involved in our schools. It makes me feel really good that our community still believes in our school district, so thank you. And go ahead, Peter.
Okay, well, I just wanted to mention that the Committee to Re-envision the West Seneca Schools will be accepting applications from the community until April 16th. Application submissions can be made online or by mail, and our district clerk can assist with mail-in applications. The committee that we put together will work towards the planning of the future educational needs of the students based on expected student population and the community's expectations moving forward. So if there's any questions, they can contact Nicole for mail-in applications or any other questions they might have.
This is a great move toward transparency to get our community involved. They really need to be, yeah.
That's why I'm very excited that we've gotten quite a few people showing interest contacting Nicole. So thank you, Nicole, for doing that, and thank you to our community.
Okay. Any other discussion?
How many
Okay.
applicants did we have? 77?
Awesome. That's good.
That's good.
Yeah.
I think that's excellent.
That's really good.
It's always good to get more minds together.
I guess, just to piggyback on Ed and how great our teachers are doing, last week, pretty windy day. I believe it was Friday, was the windy day. There was no power at East Middle, and I can speak personally about East Middle. My son attends East Middle. We had teachers teaching classes.
You were
with-
texting that, yeah.
Yes, with flashlights. Specifically, my child ended up in Mr. Mancino's class, who was teaching a class with a flashlight, with no power, while teaching. So kudos to our teachers who are going above and beyond to make sure
Jody,
everything.
I also heard from parents that
Yeah.
it
It
was
was
the same thing, that the teachers,
Crazy.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal job trying to keep everyone engaged.
Yep, we had teachers on their phones just trying to connect to the Google Meet to be like, hey, guy, I'm here. Like, they can talk to the students that are in front of them. But as Mr. Mancino refers to TV Land, which was where my son happened to be on Friday. He was in TV Land. It was great to be able to still maintain his current level of teaching.
We do have excellent staff.
Yeah, we have excellent
Kudos.
staff, excellent administrators. That's why the district is moving forward the way it is. And so we appreciate all their efforts.
Absolutely.
And
Any
we gotta
other
we got to get the kids
discussion?
back to school.
Yeah, well,
I just
always,
want to
you know.
wish everyone a happy Easter. It's a
Oh, yeah.
very
Everyone.
meaningful religious holiday. Yeah, thank you.
And get ready for what's coming at the end of the week. No.
I know.
Okay, any other discussion?
Snow day.
Speaking of snow days.
Speaking of snow days,
Dad, do we have snow day?
We have 2 in a bank.
Yeah.
Cool. Snow day.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll move.
Okay, Mrs. Bussey, can I have a second? Mr. Potowski, any discussion? Please, no. Okay, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, carried 7-0.
All of our families tuning in, please be safe over the break.
Yes, everybody have a good night and enjoy the break next week.